is also a former social worker and a political campaign activist.
Some people in town say the base is run by aliens working with our federal government to conduct mind control and genetic experiments.
I'm leaving. I'm glad. Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass.
Welcome back.
Hello, podcast universe. Welcome to the Eerie Americas. This is Kristi Hull.
Vicky Ayala.
And once again, you are tuned in to the Eerie Americas. Well, hopefully you've tuned in again.
If this is your first time, go listen to our first episode.
And welcome. So we had an interesting week, I guess.
Well, as promised, we said if we did anything cool, which cool means that we left our apartments to do something other than work in this podcast, we can tell you. So Kristi and I, after the last podcast, went to the movies.
Yeah, it was actually my husband's idea. He was like, let's go out and celebrate. And as he runs around Brooklyn throughout most of the day trying to bootleg, he finds these cool places to go. And this movie theater that we actually grew up, so it's called the Pavilion. It's in it was in the fancy part of Prospect Park, but now everywhere around Prospect Park is fancy. The nicer, even though it wasn't nice, it was still a nice theater to go to.
And it was kind of far from where I live, so I thought I was so cool that I got to go to the other part of Brooklyn.
You had to either you lived by it, you had to walk, or you took the F train there. You went there. It was called the Pavilion. We loved it.
And then it got torn down a few years ago. And I was actually really devastated because I loved that movie theater.
Like the Phoenix, that's New York. It is like the Phoenix. Things that burn down from the ashes are risen again from smoke.
Someone bought it and made it into what's called the Nighthawk, and it's a dine-in movie theater, which is a big thing now. And the best thing about it is that it has 2 full bars, and we're old enough to drink now. So
yeah, woohoo! Well, we've been old enough to drink,
but now I never thought about drinking at the Pavilion. I used to sneak in the alcohol in my bag.
Yeah,
and then I used to buy a slushie and then put it in the slushie and get super drunk.
And what was super convenient about the Pavilion was there was a liquor store right down
there.
The block.
That's sold to minors. We're not gonna say.
Yeah, well, I mean that was back in the day. Now these days you can't.
Yeah, everybody gets carded.
Yeah, you can't buy anything in New York City these days without anything. I used to go into clubs. I can't even talk about that anymore.
We used to do so much
That's
crap.
Old New York.
I didn't even need a fake ID. Nobody checked.
What was an old fake ID? If you had some decent bajonkas and a good sense of humor, you can get in humor. That's all.
Oh yeah, my wonderful.
Your winning personality.
So witty. So we did. We left the house. We still didn't go to the Statue of Liberty or Ellis Island.
And it was cool. It's actually the second location. There's a first place in Williamsburg, of course.
And I'm not going there because it's fine.
The hub of hipsterdom. So we'd never been to that one, but we went to this one to support,
cool.
and it was really cool.
We saw Vice, which was pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, Christian Bale is pretty amazing.
His transformations are insane. I'm sure. We've
really
all known for years. But
and Dick Cheney's an asshole, but we knew that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, to be fair though, considering it was Adam McKay, the back and forth with all the political crap, I don't really get into it. But the one thing I'll give him that is they just told stories. They didn't really take a position. He didn't really make them look in a bad light. He just kind of told the stories that he knew about Dick Cheney. So, I mean, I found that interesting on Adam McKay's end. At the end, of course, he took a more, liberal approach.
Of course.
But I think he stayed as unbiased as possible for someone.
It was a good time. It was a good movie. Christian Bale's great. The drink was great.
A lot more laughs than I thought. I thought I would get more aggravated, but then again,
we laughed during a podcast about murders and stuff, so maybe we aren't the judge of what's...
Yeah, we don't take politics as seriously as everybody these days. I think that's the big issue. A lot of people don't just kind of lay back. Our day-to-day lives aren't that different. I do what I have to do
as a citizen. I do vote, and I do care about it. It's just that I can't spend every single day worrying about it, or I'll never get through the day.
Yeah, that's the problem. These days, we're all too haunted. We just need to relax. Beyond that, we had a good time. That was fun.
It was fun.
Big hype right now, of course, is Senior Ted Bundy. Theodore is back.
And, the Ted Bundy Tapes.
Ted is, for Vicky and I, it was one of our mutual, wait, you like Ted Bundy? I like Ted Bundy. So before the Ted Bundy drop, I have an encyclopedia of serial killers. Bundy has been flagged multiple times. He's a super fascinating creature to me, not because of looks or the sheer quantity of women that he's been linked to.
It's just really just his narcissism, and he's just so full of himself, the way he can manipulate. And I just always found it interesting the way he, when he defended himself in court. I always found that interesting, and not interesting in the glorifying Ted Bundy kind of way, but it's fascinating to me. And then you hear all of these profiles on serial killers, and he kind of went against that.
Absolutely.
So that's why it always was well, you say that serial killers are supposed to be, you know, like abuse his children and all these things. I'm like, but he says he wasn't. Like, he himself says that didn't happen to me.
And not just
then
that,
he blamed it on porn.
I think it's interesting that he helped set up the profiles for serial killers
that fit them. He did it perfectly, but he didn't fit into it. It's just, to me, it was just
so I think they told a cool story of his whole history for the most part.
And it's like different because you hear it from his voice. There's something so like haunting about hearing him. You can hear all these things about him, but then you hear it from him. It's just different. That's definitely, if you haven't seen it, you should.
Yeah, if you're one of the 10 people that have Netflix that haven't seen it, that are into horror podcasts or anything horror related, I highly recommend it. Very balanced. We got through it in one day.
I got through it very quickly because I was from home that day and I texted you and you were like, you're done already? I went through it very quickly.
I slave all day.
Like, I don't even think and I don't eat and I don't pee. I don't do anything. I just sit at my desk.
I slave all day, so I couldn't watch it quickly.
I watched it after work. I stayed up all night and watched it.
That's
it
our
was
position.
From 9 to 5. I was all business.
Working 9 to 5.
Yeah,
like Dolly Parton. Interesting. Definitely recommend Senior Ted Bundy Confessional Tapes. It will be on our website, www.theeerieamericas.com.
Under the recommendation section, we do have a creepy story from one of our friends who we harass when we go out and get them drunk and make them tell us scary stories. This is from our friend Amanda. Her story is, when I was around 12, my friends and I were playing with a Ouija board. Not a good idea. At a sleepover at my house. In the middle of the night, the shades went up out of nowhere. And it was one of those, if you have shades, they have like a cord that you're supposed to pull for the shades to go up or down. She said the shades just went up out of nowhere.
Oh, hell no.
And she said it was the creepiest thing to her. Newsflash. Do not ever
also, it was like a drawstring.
Yeah,
like
the ones that you have to physically pull it, and then if you want to bring them down, you have to like move over to the side, and it's like stupid. So she said they were middle of the night, blinds just go up, and it's just like, don't play with the Ouija board.
Yeah, just because it says Parker Brothers on it does not mean that
just because you got it in the toy section of Toys R Us, it's not a toy. And be very happy that all you got was some shades that went up, because there's been crazier stories. But that is creepy as fuck, especially if you're 12.
Hell yeah, that is eerie. I
see what you did there.
There we go. So another thing I was going to bring up is our great cousins to the north, Canada. I don't know how you feel about Canada, but I personally love Canada. And the funny thing about Canada is I've traveled a lot. I've never been to Canada, and I
haven't been there either.
And I'll tell you, we're from New York, so it's not a far commute. We can get to Montreal in like 7 hours. But the honest truth is, I'm afraid to visit Canada. And I'll tell you why I'm afraid to visit Canada, because I feel like I'm going to fall. It's going to be like falling in love and never wanting to like never feel that again. Like, I feel like I will fall in love with Canada.
Eric from Canada.
I feel like I'm gonna go to Canada. I'm gonna fall in love with the people. I'm gonna fall in love with the bagels. I'm gonna fall in love with the tap water, which I hear is amazing. I'm gonna fall in love with free healthcare. I'm gonna fall in love with.
See, if I was gonna go to Canada for anything, it would definitely be from here, free healthcare, because I have a freaking cold right now. I've had it all week. I've been trying to get rid of it. I just told Kristi that I sound like Janice from Friends and did the whole "Hello, Chandler" thing, and it was just really
spot on.
I'm so nasal right now. But if I lived in Canada, I probably would have had medication.
Can you say the other Janice line?
Oh my God!
So
it's really bad.
It's so good that it's so bad.
But basically, us going to the movies was the only thing I did all week. Oh, the one thing that happened by the time you listen to this podcast, you'll know this already, but our website went live this week, and it was super exciting. That was literally the most exciting
part of that was fun. It was good for us, so we're excited. Back to Canada. I brought this up because we are actually going to talk about a Canadian recent serial killer.
Maybe that'll keep you from falling in love with Canada.
I don't know, because, I love America, and the vast majority of them are from America. But that's what's interesting. The more I look into it, the more I'm like, wait a minute, we're not the only ones with these horrendous people in the world, because for the vast majority, Canadians are amazing, sweet people. Like, there's not a single Canadian that I've come across that I haven't liked, that I'm aware that they're from Canada.
I haven't met any Canadians, but I'm pretty sure I'd like them all.
No, I'm telling you, they're awesome people. But this guy isn't, and that's the point. So we're going to talk about Dylan Millard and his little henchman, Mark Smitch. So this was pretty recent, but we'll go into the history of that. He got his last conviction as recent as right before New Year's.
Oh, so that
of 2018.
just happened. Okay.
So this is a really, really recent case. So I thought it would be kind of cool to introduce.
Well, I haven't heard
Canada
much about it, so
into this, right? So this takes place in Toronto. The primary person we're going to be discussing is Dylan Millard. That is his name, Dylan Millard. He was born to a wealthy aviation family.
Well, aren't you lucky, Dylan?
Yes.
Stupid
So
name.
Off the bat, he doesn't fit the normal profile.
Right, that's already different.
So he is a wealthy aviation family heirloom. His father and his grandfather set up some aviation business that's quite successful. By age 14, actually, he became the youngest in Canadian history to take a solo flight in one day for both a helicopter and a plane. So this is a promising person as far as
He could have been such a great person,
society's concerned. So he's set up really well. But sadly, he would become the family failure. He drops out of college, starts partying, gets into harder and harder drugs, and somewhere along the sides decides that he wants to become this criminal mastermind when he has all these other options. So I don't know who willingly chooses to become a criminal when they have all these advantages over everybody else. But, each his own, I guess. I won't really understand that. So he starts kind of creating his circle of grimy people, essentially. So in this grimy social scene, Dylan kind of becomes overindulgent and seems to develop this god complex where he becomes untouchable. And somewhere in between all this, he meets a henchman named Mark Smitch. And he kind of, from what I was reading and from my research, it kind of sounds like Mark was obsessed with Del because he was this rich badass.
Well, of course, he's like this in the smoking aviation family.
Yeah, and he couldn't afford all the drugs to keep all of them drugged
basically
up
like
and
a meal
partying.
Ticket. He's has a lot of money and
he's the rock star, and he's creating this posse of douchebags, and this includes Mark Smitch, who at the time he was 23. He was born to middle class parents, really normal guy. So he meets someone like Del, and he's probably just fascinated with who he is and sees this big opportunity. But Del used to take his circle of friends and he used to call crimes, and he used to call these criminal missions. And quote unquote criminal missions. And it went anything from robberies to drug dealing to actually shooting porn in his family's aircrafts. There's pictures of girlfriends, women that he took and literally shot porn because why not, right? You have access to jets, so why not create porn, I guess?
You could have just shot the porn and not done the crimes. I feel like that would have been a better path than what he did.
Yeah, and I feel like he would have made more money and stayed out of jail. But
just shot the porn.
That's just me. This outlaw rep, of course, brought out the underlings of Toronto society, and that's how he met Mark. And so Mark Smitch had a police record already involving petty offenses like drug possession, mischief, driving impaired, failure to appear, breach of conditions, basically just a slimy douche. What's pretty much what I'm reading. So when he wasn't busy breaking the law, Mark, in his spare time, he enjoyed making gore videos. So you can YouTube him really creepy gore videos. And creepy for me is not something I use very often, but they are pretty weird. And then filming his gangster rap videos, which
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes, this is a white Toronto Canadian male. So it's funny for us. Whenever, other than Eminem, I don't think we really have taken any rappers seriously in Brooklyn that's white. Sorry, that hasn't happened yet.
I just don't see... I mean, Canada sounds great. I just don't see Canada being gangster rap.
Toronto.
But to each its own.
Yeah.
And Dylan, your friend, sounds great. That was a great pick of friends you just made there.
So so Del kind of makes this base for him and his skeevy friends in Waterloo, Ontario. His family owns a hangar. And yes, had to look up what a hangar is because I'm not rich.
The planes go there, right?
Yeah, so it's basically like a garage for airplanes. So if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's where they kind of board up the planes. You ever see the little big warehouse things? It could fit a plane in there. That's where all of them used to hang out. And, he enjoyed doing things like stealing people's cars. And
You're already rich. What are you stealing people's cars for?
Look at this. He steals cars just to destroy them in the hangar.
See, that's how you know you have too much money. Because you hang out in an airport hangar and you steal cars just to mess them up. That's how you know you have too much
you're
money.
A total dick off the bat already. So he was a sick fuck, because if I found out someone stole my car, I'd be like, all right, maybe they were really desperate for money. Maybe this. You would try to justify it on some level, but this guy just, no.
You're just a dick with money.
He just has the money, so he doesn't care. So that's the setup of Dylan Millard.
Sounds like a stand-up guy.
Stand-up and Mark. They're both wonderful peas in a pod that somehow they came together. But on to Miss Laura Babcock. Now, she was 23 at the time. She was born to a middle-class family in Toronto. She was a university student. She was studying art and drama major and wanted to become an actress.
Oh, poor Laura.
But from what I understood about her and from what, you can find real facts about her because this was so recent. She was whimsical, life of the party, super close to her friends. She loved dogs, really. She loved her dogs.
I love dogs.
Yeah, she sounds like someone I would actually like to hang out with and
You
chill.
hear that, Mark? You can be born in a middle-class family and not be a douche.
Yeah, she sounded like the ultimate sweetheart. Everybody that said anything great about her, despite the things you will hear and despite her history that will come up, ultimately she was a kind, sweet soul. One night, she decided to go out to a bar like you do in your 20s in college, and she met Mr. Dylan Millard. So it's like your average night in your 20s. You go out, you meet a guy, you know, whatever. They dated for a short amount of time. They estimate roughly a month or so. But then they decided to remain friends. And we use that quote
never
unquote.
Works. Don't do that.
That's
You're
why
not
you don't stay
friends.
friends with your exes, because they may murder you. That's why you break up. Because let's be real. Can't you just make other friends? Like, why do you have to keep friends with people that you date? Like, if you can't make it work as a couple, what makes you think, oh, we're going to be better friends?
And no matter what anybody
happens.
says, you're not better off as friends. You're just better off not being around each other.
Yeah, let's be honest. Like, when someone's bad for you, just get rid of them. Make your life easier. Just do it. And I'm not talking about women, man, what.
Yeah,
all
it
of
doesn't
you.
matter.
Any dynamic where someone is poison for you, just do yourself a favor. Cut that leg off. That's all I'm saying, because you're going to get gangrene. So she continues, because of his lifestyle, she continues to hang out with them. Like, he has keggers and parties, you know, like, you're in your 20s. You're an actress, you know, you're trying to be an actress, you're a student. You meet this wealthy person that you saw who wants to invite you to parties. Like, it's something that we all did in our 20s. You know what I mean? You can't really judge the girl for that, you know? It's easy to get enamored with that kind of lifestyle, you know? Then, of course, this morphed into her having feelings for him because she hung out with him all the time. And who doesn't love the unattainable bad boy, you know? Like, that's his
Everybody's
whole
got to
appeal.
get the one bad boy out of their system.
Yeah. So, like, this is her bad boy, I guess. That's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, but the gangster rap and everything.
Yeah, but eventually she meets this guy named Sean Lerner. He sounds like the guy that every parent would dream would marry their daughter. Caring, loving towards her, bought her things, threw her a birthday party.
Aw, how sweet.
You know, just a sincerely sweet person.
Another guy who's not a douche. Like Dylan. And
so much so that he threw her birthday party. He invited Dylan, because they were friends, so he knew that they were friends. He invited Dylan and his soon-to-be girlfriend, Christina Nudgia. So they meet the first time, like, as a, you know, a couple together on Laura's birthday. Fast forward to all this, you know, in between all this drama, stuff starts going down. At this point, Laura and Sean are together for about a year and a half. They break up. Her mental stability starts to decline. We don't know if it's from all the drugs. We don't know if it was a previous thing. Her family's been kind of private about this. I can understand why. Mental
totally
disorders or something.
It's still such a stigma behind it, which there shouldn't be. I'm the first one that'll advocate for mental health awareness. I have severe anxiety. I've suffered from depression. There's nothing to be ashamed about.
And I also believe full-heartedly that if you don't say things, it leads to suicide and suicidal thoughts. And we need to make it so that there's not such a stigma behind us, so that people talk about it. You're going to hear talk about this several times throughout the podcast. We are huge mental health advocates. Absolutely. So when she breaks up with Sean, of course, Dylan is telling her, look, I'm with Christina, leave me alone. But later when you look through their phones, they exchanged over 110 phone calls and text messages. These days, if you don't want to talk to someone, it's simple. You click info, you click block. That's that easy. Done. So if you really didn't want to talk to her, then you didn't have to.
You don't need 110 phone calls for
that.
Right.
And it wasn't just her calling. There's evidence of him calling, texting her back as well. So this is just this awful cat and mouse game that certain people just go through. So a year later, on Laura's birthday, Christina shoots Laura a text message telling her, happy birthday. A year ago today, I slept with Dylan. Laura replies, that's fine. I slept with him a few weeks ago. So as you can see, the drama starts to escalate here because, you know, it's a year and a half into the relationship. You're young. You're all on drugs. You're partying. You know, you want to. You know,
apparently Dylan sounds great to all of you. I don't know. I guess.
So these taunting texts continued up until what I assume is the end of her life. You can, you know, they found the, you know, all that back and forth and all that. So Dylan actually also left a bunch of incriminating text messages to Christina. In April 2012, he sent one to her that read, first, I'm going to hurt her. Then we'll make her leave. I will remove her from our lives. So
you taunt her and then you want to kill her because she's in your life.
And there's evidence of premeditation. I mean, you're sitting there telling your girlfriend that you're going to kill your ex-girlfriend. Essentially, that's what you're saying.
Hint. Not that we're going to condone murder, but if you're going to do it, don't text somebody and say it. It might, you know, incriminate
So in the middle of all this, Laura's mental and emotional stability continues to decline. She sleeps on couches, was homeless. But though, to be fair, like her mother had stated recently, they never told her not to come home. She just wasn't abiding by the rules.
Which
so
I totally get.
They didn't want her coming in, stumbling, drunk, and high at 4 a.m. So they locked her door. So she, you know, had to resort to sleeping where she could, essentially. Right. So, you know, I try to, I'm defending the Babcocks on that aspect because, you know, my mother had rules that way. If I wasn't home,
It doesn't really matter
I
how
was
old
either
I
in trouble
am.
or I was screwed. It would happen if I lived with her today.
Exactly. I'm 32, and if I stayed at my mom's house for any period of time, and I came home drunk at 4 in the morning, my mom would still be like, "You're not coming home." So it's a parenting thing. You do what you think is right, and that I would do it if I
absolutely.
ever had a kid.
So meanwhile, perfect Sean Lerner kept tabs on her. He still stayed in touch with her. She called him one day, desperate for a place to be, like a place to stay. Right. So he actually put her up in a hotel and lent her his iPad to look for apartments because she started to start looking for an apartment.
That seems like more of a Canadian good person than
absolutely.
Dylan.
So when she didn't return his phone calls after that, he just assumed she wanted to hang on to the iPad. But like at the time, she was using the iPad to actually become an escort. So this was roughly June 2012. She was, kind of indulging in some...
Not going to pass judgments.
CD
Sometimes
behavior.
You just have to do what you have to do for money.
And bear in mind, she's not in her right mental state. There's a lot of things going on at this time for her. At this point, the very last person to see her alive officially, as far as we know, his name is Stefan Blasiak. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but Stefan...
Have an easier to pronounce name if you don't want us to butcher it.
And he took a really funny video of Laura meowing like a kitty. And
oh yeah, I totally do that all the time. And I bark like a dog. It
sounds weird, but it's actually really cute. So apparently what happened was, like, it was a joke they always pulled in public because she sounds a lot like a cat when she mimics them. So there's the last video is her being in public and he's like, do it. And she's kind of like chuckling and she's going meow and like just cracking up. So it was actually a really cute video. That was the last known image or anything of her. They were together between July 1st and July 2nd of 2012. He walked her to the bus stop because she was going to go get cocaine.
Sure. That
was the last time anyone saw her. He put her on a bus, and that was essentially it from friends and family.
That could sound kind of suspicious,
everyone stopped hearing from Laura basically July 2012. Sean Lerner at that point realizes something's up, so he tries to report her missing the first few days, but cops said she was a high risk because of her job and mental stability.
Because another thing I'm going to keep bringing up is people if you're any type of sex worker, it's like you don't deserve respect
or your mental condition, because it was known already that she had, she's gotten checked to hospitals here and there. It was a known fact that she had mental problems. So you're looking at somebody who's mentally unstable, who's been escorting. They're looking at her like she's just a piece of crap and she's just going to show up, or if she doesn't, it doesn't matter. Again, another reason why we have to care about people's mental state and
definitely. And we got to stop.
And it not be a factor.
You deserve respect and you're a person.
And it not be a factor if you go missing. It should matter if you disappear.
It shouldn't matter what your job is. It shouldn't matter what your mental state is. If you're missing, you're missing. And the first few hours are so critical that you just wasted precious time judging her.
So Sean kind of becomes her PI. I don't know about you, but I don't know a single ex that would do that for me.
Me either. I don't even think my boyfriend would do that for me. I love you, Ryan, but I don't think he'd be my PI if I fucking disappeared.
But no, he called her phone company. Like, he literally was doing every single thing.
Well, obviously, because the fucking cops weren't going to do it. Someone's got to do it.
So this is the evidence / clues that were left from Laura as of now. So going back to Dylan's perspective now. So Millard, that's his last name, instructs his mechanic at his shop to build a homemade incinerator with giant green oil drums. When that failed, he ordered an industrial model.
All right, newsflash. Mechanics. Someone comes up to you and asks you to build an incinerator, call the fucking cops, because it's not normal.
Nope.
You don't just build incinerators. What the fuck do you need an incinerator for unless you're trying to blow somebody up? Please, mechanics, don't. Don't build it.
Needless to say, when that failed, he ordered it. And this was in May. Mind you, she didn't disappear until July. So
obviously you were cooking this up for months.
Interesting choice of words. But so on July 2nd, Millard purchased a .32 caliber handgun. July 3rd of 2012, Laura and Dylan met at Kipling subway station. Her last cell data was the last 8 calls was to Dylan. Then 1 voicemail checkup at 7:03 p.m. at Dylan's house. They pinned her at Dylan's house. She never uses her phone. She's like us, a millennial. Glued to her phone,
so you don't just stop using that.
All her other IDs have been unused. She's disappeared after being last tracked at Dylan's home.
Dylan did it. Okay, you can continue.
So, FYI, Sean Lerner is the one that found out about the last 8 text messages and voice calls.
Of course he did.
Sean's the one that went to the cops with that and told them, hey, this girl's missing. This guy's shady. This is what happened. This is what I had. And
please tell me they listened to him this time.
Just keep that in mind for now. That's the story I'm going to leave with now. So Millard sends Smitch a text that same evening on July 3rd stating, quote, I am on a mission. Be back in 1 hour. And remember,
Oh, are you on a criminal mission?
his mission means, the word mission to him means crime. So July 4th, which is nothing for them but Independence Day for us, the iPad Sean Lerner gave her is connected to a computer, and it's titled Mark's iPad.
Oh, your little henchman Mark.
So he changed the name to Mark's iPad, which is Mark Smitch. So
That's so inconspicuous. Stealing an iPad and then changing it to your name.
So also photos from Millard's cell phone from the day after Laura's murder. There's a picture of a little cute dog, really cute, looking up, but so the dog's kind of off to the left of the frame, but center and right of the frame is this huge, massive blue tarp. It looks like it's someone's wrapped.
Oh yeah,
in
totally.
It.
I have blue tarps in my house all over the place.
The sick fuck took a picture of her body but made it look like, but put his dog in front of it to kind of make it look like it was nothing, but in reality, we all know what that was.
You're a shit, Dylan.
So July 5th, he gets the incinerator delivered, and on the 23rd, he sends a text to Mark Smitch saying, quote, BBQ ran its warm-up. It's ready for meat. And the incinerator, by the way, is called the Eliminator. Yeah.
This is the fucking most stupid shit I've ever heard in my life. This is horrible.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier. Del has been charged with several murders. I'm doing them in order of how he murdered, according to the police. So these are not in the order that he was charged with, but this is the order that he's actually been chronologically in order. But he got charged for different times for different various reasons. But yeah, so July 23rd at 10:38 that evening, Del, like the smart genius he is, Google searched a cremation question asking how hot an incinerator has to get to burn bodies, basically.
Well, in addition to not texting people, if you're going to murder them, maybe don't do a search on your computer about how hot an incinerator has to be to kill them.
Cremate. So he literally typed in cremation. Also, on that same video, same phone is a video. He shoots a video of sparks. There's like little sparks, and so you hear it crackling. Forensics later determined that it was human remains. The sick fuck burned the incinerator and then took images of Laura's floating parts, just floating away into the abyss. So the next morning after the cremation, we're assuming this was July 23rd, 2012, July 24th, Smitch posts a video rapping about burning a woman and throwing her cell in a lake, basically bragging about it, but no one believed it.
Oh, his little gangster rap?
So on our site, we're going to post that video so you guys can check it out. But it's an insane rap. First of all, it's terrible. And secondly, he's basically confessing to everything they did. It's pretty insane. Superhero Sean even gave out, like I mentioned, the deets to these posts and her cell phone records, and still nothing was done.
So someone literally confesses in a rap song and they still don't do anything?
Nothing is done about her case, and her remains have never been recovered.
Probably because they were floating in the fucking air on camera.
Needless to say, Sean kept looking. Sean kept insisting it was Del. The cops just went, yeah. All right, whatever. We're looking into it. And that's that. So fast forward to November. Dellen's father, Wayne Millard. Wayne Millard. Looking at Del saying Dillard. I'll edit that.
No, keep it. I like it.
So Wayne Millard is his father. This is the second murder that we know of. That's what I'm going to keep saying, that we know of, because you never know with these people. So, because more and more, the
numbers are always off.
Yeah, the more and more that you find out about people,
especially when cops aren't willing to look into it.
And for people that don't know, the number you have to hit to be a serial killer is 3. So he's considered a serial killer. But his second murder was actually his father, Wayne. He bought an illegal firearm on November 29th, 2012. So this is a few months after killing Laura. Wayne was found dead with a gunshot through the left eye. Shooting him in the left eye as he slept, and he somehow made it look like a suicide. Cops believed him when they said it was a suicide. Who shoots themselves in the eye as a suicide? That's my thing. How did he get away with that? Or the police that ill-equipped in this town?
My whole thing is, if someone's already come to you with another possible murder, and then you have something this suspicious, it's like nothing went off in your head to maybe investigate him.
Despite a few cops saying this is, to say the least, an unusual way to commit suicide, and at least one of them went on record to say they were unhappy with the investigation, it was ruled a suicide, completely forgotten about. The motive here is unclear, but there are rumors that later they found out that Del and Wayne were obviously having disagreements over the family business, and I'm sure over Del's personality and behavior.
And just being
I would assume that Wayne was just tired of Del's partying and drugs and threatened to cut him off, but who really knows, Other than his
Or
killer.
maybe he was just a sick fuck and decided to kill his father one day. Who
Yeah.
knows?
And to boot, Dylan actually wrote the obit, and it is one of the weirdest obits
So
I've ever read
kill your
from
dad.
someone who's murdered someone else close to them. It's the creepiest thing.
So you murdered your dad, and then you lied and said it was a suicide, and then you wrote his obituary?
Apparently. So yeah.
we're gonna also put that on our site.
Yeah, the
because
obit
it's-
is worth checking out because it's from the horse's mouth, and it's pretty insane. Once again, this guy's roaming free, still doing his crimes, still doing whatever he's got to do. So we don't know what he did in between all this other time, but unfortunately, the next person to come across Del is Tim Bosma. On May 6, 2013, 32-year-old Ancaster family man. He had one little girl. I didn't find a single bad thing about Tim, and I don't mean that in a way where it's like he was such a good guy. Like, there was not a single negative thing about friends, family, press. Everybody had something good to say. He was a self-starter. He was frugal, like famously frugal, but like in a good way because he saved his money for what he wanted. He kept his head down. He liked working with his hands. He was a sheet metal worker like his dad. His friends teased him about his taste in music. He especially loved Coldplay, which is hysterical. Like, who loved Coldplay in 2013? That's pretty great.
Well, we forgive anybody who likes Coldplay, maybe.
I mean, I think we all went through that phase, like a Coldplay phase, but then like you outgrow
and then I learned
that
about
phase.
real music, yeah.
Yeah, but then like Tim Bosma just loved Coldplay. So for some extra cash, he and his wife Charlene decided to sell his truck. So he posted it online like you do and caught the attention of two people who requested they test drive it. You can guess who these two people were.
Dick 1 and Dick 2?
Yeah, a.k.a. Dylan Millard and Mark Smitch. Now, Charlene, who I found super, super smart, really cool. Like, I watched a lot of documentaries with her in it. She's been advocating for her husband, and like, you know, she's been at every court and every jury thing when it comes to like she's very committed to ensuring that her husband didn't die in this ridiculously vain way. She basically said that she found it odd that they showed up damn near in the dark, and they showed up on foot. Like, they didn't roll up like in a car. They showed up with like at dusk with no car. Canada is anything like I know it to be.
Right. I was just saying, like, if you're from Brooklyn, then that might be kind of normal because there's plenty of... You can get anywhere in Brooklyn and not drive, but somewhere like Canada, you can't just go anywhere without driving.
Even Tim found it, quote, weird, but they're polite like most Canadians and decided to let them test drive. Anyway. So he took Millard and his pal Mark for the test drive, and it was a Dodge Ram diesel truck, and he never came home. Like,
did they think that his wife wasn't going to notice that he
that's
just didn't
my
come
thing.
the
You
fuck
roll
home?
up to someone's house and you think you could just take someone's life and no one's going to ever find out?
Like, couldn't you just have stolen the fucking car and just let him go home? Like, who gives a shit?
So search parties began. They were called the Bosma Army because there was hundreds of people looking for him. So the Bosma Army, shout out to you guys. I try to find the positive in all that's negative, and the community impact is always what gets me the most because, like, you don't... As a New Yorker, we don't talk to our neighbors. I know that if one of us, knock on wood, ever went missing, my neighbors would still help find because that's what people do in these times.
Except for the guy upstairs because he's an asshole.
Yeah, except my upstairs neighbor who I've gotten into vicious fights with, but that's a whole other story. I'm sure people in New York can completely understand hating their neighbors. But anyway, so this is the evidence that these morons left in Tim's case through video footage because, you know, everywhere you go, you're filmed.
Right.
Tim's final whereabouts were put together. Millard was in the truck with him. Smitch followed in another car. So
they arrived on foot, but did have another car.
Yeah. So they just probably left it out of sight, so Charlene couldn't identify a car. That's my assumption.
Which is probably the only semi-smart thing they probably thought about throughout this whole thing.
Right. When they arrived at the hangar, they caught them on video. They saw what happened. But when they arrived at the hangar, which is the Waterloo, in Waterloo, Ontario, the Ram was being pulled in a trailer. So
and there's no Tim Bosma.
There's no video of Tim anywhere. So somewhere in between, Tim was shot. His body was burned to ash in the same incinerator. Yeah, the Eliminator. And video footage of Millard and Smitch at the hangar that night with Tim's trucks confirmed that Tim was nowhere to be seen. The incinerator burns all night. And video footage of they did the same thing. They kind of shoot it. They're sick fucks.
I'm just like thinking, like, you know, shouldn't there be like a requirement for buying an incinerator? Like, you know, like Joe Schmo can't buy an incinerator. Like, don't you just like have to
That
be a
was
funeral
literally
home?
my thought when I was first reading this. I'm like, who just says I need an incinerator? Like, don't people question what those for? You know how like you buy too much cold medication And you get
Like,
put
I
on a
literally
list.
get ID'd every time I buy my allergy meds, but you don't get any questions about buying a fucking incinerator. What the hell do you need an incinerator
But I also think
for?
it's also if you can afford it, they don't ask questions.
That's the thing.
So,
Like, that's the reason the cops also, I think, didn't question him, because especially when, like, Laura went missing, it's like, who the hell cares shit about Laura? Like, this kid has money. He couldn't have done anything. He could just pay anybody off.
the Millard family, they're probably known. They're like, no, they wouldn't happen. That's ridiculous. Like, I'm sure it was.
I mean, this kid's so fucking rich that he hangs out at a fucking airport hangar after he kills people. Like, that's just the shit. Like,
Yeah. How they were finally caught was a tipster called and said that someone had test driven their truck, and he has a tattoo on his wrist with the word ambition on it.
oh, ambition, oh.
Yeah, they were able to obviously link that to Dellen, because who puts ambition on their
What
arm?
idiot does that?
Tim's truck was found at Dellen's mother's home in a trailer with shell casings, gunshot residue, and Dellen's prints everywhere.
So you didn't even clean your fucking truck?
Luminol was all over the truck, which is someone's attempt to clean up the blood. But I guess he didn't think about his...
Or taking out the
Prints?
shell casings.
And then, when Millard was arrested, he had Tim's keys in his pockets.
Not suspicious at all.
So, I don't know if that was a trophy, or if he planned on just destroying the truck. I don't know what his
Because
intentions
obviously you're not going to
were.
drive it around.
I don't know if that was like he was keeping his keys as a sick
Unless he was
trophy
going to,
type
like,
of thing.
drive it off, like, a cliff with himself inside it. That would have been nice.
When he finally got arrested, Millard led them to the incinerator that he hid on some property, and they were able to confirm Tim's remains, but not Laura's.
Oh.
So this is the results of this case. Basically, first of all, cops get brutally criticized, which
Well, no shit.
for
You could have prevented
having
the
the
second
info
and the third murder if you
and
just listened
exactly
to Sean.
for having all the info and killer's name at the first murder with Laura, which could have resulted in saving Wayne and Tim, but they said they did everything, quote, by the book.
Can I read this book? Because I don't think that's true. Do they get, like, I swear you should get charged if you fucking don't investigate a murder and there's two others. Like, you really, like, something should happen to you.
Some people should have gotten,
Some people should have lost their
some heads
jobs.
should have rolled, for sure, if it didn't. There's a lot of people, like, a lot of the what ifs. That's kind of the hard part about this case. Like, what
Right.
if someone had actually listened to Sean and investigated Dellen? What if
Or what if someone had said that suicide of his father was fishy and investigated that? They could have
even
prevented Tim.
Charlene, she kind of said, like, what if I had told him, don't get in that car, it's too late, forget it. She kind of quoted it best, and I wanted to quote Charlene Bosma directly. She went on record to say, quote, living in a world of what ifs doesn't change what it is.
Probably.
And I think that's
when
kind
it
of
comes
the
to all the
end.
cases we're going to talk about involving murder, because we will talk about other things, that's pretty much...
Yep.
That's all you can say. There's a lot of what ifs.
So Charlene nailed it. She said living in a world of what ifs doesn't change what it is, and I think that can go for a lot of things.
That can go for a lot.
Oh, as a result, so the end of after all this, obviously there's a trial. I'll start from smaller to the larger charges. So remember the girlfriend Christina Nudia?
The one that started all the shit with Laura?
Yeah. She's currently going on trial November 14th for accessory after the fact for Tim's murder because she helped hide Tim's truck. Although she claims she didn't realize what she was doing.
Nobody believes you. At all.
And she hired some high-profile lawyer that like
and
got
honestly,
off a bunch
even
of
if
people.
she didn't know, you should go down because you started the shit with Laura for her murder
Well,
anyway.
get this. Not only does she claim that, but she was caught with 65 letters from her boo after his arrest. He had managed to sneak them out, stating, and a bunch of the times he said they, quote, needed to get their story straight. But if you know nothing...
Oh, but you didn't know anything.
But if you don't know anything, what do you need to get your story
Why
straight
does
for?
nobody believe me?
I don't understand. So I hope she goes to jail. That's November 14th of this year.
Oh,
so we'll see where that goes.
We will definitely do an update.
We'll do an update. Mark Smitch
Did his gangster rap career take off?
Mark Smitch got convicted for the murder of Tim, June 17, 2016. Two men were convicted of first-degree murder, sentenced to life in prison with no parole, eligibility for 25 years. After they charged Tim's case first, because that was obviously the most obvious evidence.
Because
so
they
that
also
was the
found his
first
body,
trial.
yeah.
The second trial was for Laura Babcock, December of 2017. Millard and Smitch were convicted of the murder of Laura Babcock,
Good.
last seen alive, July of 2012, at Dell's house. Millard and Smitch were again sentenced to life in prison, with the parole and eligibility period to be served consecutively with the previous sentence.
Good, and they should also add some time just because he raps.
Meaning they will not be released prior to 2063. So I can't even imagine how far ahead in time that is. Millard recently admitted to some part into Tim's death. He told
you didn't really have to. We have all the freaking evidence. So.
Yeah. He told the National Post, which I think up there is kind of like their New York Times or whatever.
Right.
Quote, I know that Mark killed Timothy Bosma by accident. I know he did not mean to do that. He was 30 stories, it says it like that, STOREYS, stories, higher than a kite that night. Things went really wrong, really terribly wrong with everything that was building up around the truck theft. So his defense was that he made a snap decision not to go to police and instead try to cover it up.
You were too high to realize what you were doing and kill him, but you weren't too high to put him in an incinerator.
No, he's pinning it on Mark. He's saying Mark actually shot him and he tried to cover it up, and that was where he went wrong. He didn't have anything to do with Tim's death. Mark was high and shot Tim, and then he tried to cover it up. So that's his defense with that.
Sure. Yeah, it's cool.
Also claims that in retaliation to the situation, the police went through the history and pulled these other 2 cases out of the sky, and now he's charged with that. So he's claiming that...
Right, because you never had anything to do with Laura, and you didn't know your dad.
He was a saint.
Out of the sky. Pulled right out of your ass. Okay.
So Dylan Millard is now down in history for something else other than being the youngest in aviation. He has now scorched his mark in history in Canada by getting the longest sentence ever handed down in Ontario without parole possibility. He needs to do 75 years before being considered for parole. He'll be 102 years old.
Ha ha, I don't feel bad.
So that is unfortunately the case of Dylan Millard and Mark Smitch. I hope that the Babcocks, the Bosmas, and even the Millard family can find some semblance of peace. You know, I also feel bad for the family of the killers, because it's like, just because you're family doesn't mean that you're a piece of shit. You know, like a lot of people...
he grew up with money. There was nothing indicating that he would have grown up this way. So I feel bad.
And Mark,
I'm sure she's getting a lot of shit because your son's such a dick. And
the Smith family too. They're probably just a normal, Ontario, Toronto, whatever, wherever they're at now family. You can raise a bad apple. It doesn't mean that you're bad yourself.
Right, and then his rap sheet, it was a rap sheet, but to me, there's plenty of people who have not murder, but like theft and drugs, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a murderer. So, like, I'm sure that anybody that, like, really wants to give the family, like, shit is like, well, he had a rap sheet. I mean, plenty of people do stupid shit growing up and they don't murder anybody. So I do have some sympathy sometimes because, he just assumed that just because they raised a serial killer, they're shitty people, and it doesn't mean that they are.
Right.
So I just hope that everybody found peace. I hope you both fucking have a hard-ass time in jail. I hope it's miserable. And I hope you go out Dahmer style, so.
It's a good reference. That's the most recent Canadian story that I could find that I found.
I still want to go to Canada, though.
Me too, absolutely.
I want to meet Sean. Or A. Sean.
Yeah, no, I would, I hear their bagels are awesome because their tap water is good.
But we're from New York.
Yeah, but that's the big thing. So our bagels are good, but Canada's famous for their good water. So in Montreal, apparently they're famous for their bagels, and they're all new dancing. But
we will definitely be filming one of these from Canada one day. It's gonna happen.
But I already love Canada, and I haven't been there. Dylan Millard and Mark Schmidt are not going to make me change my mind about that.
You're not going to taint our view of Canada.
Not at all. On to our favorite segment.
Who does that? Who does that? Who does that? Who does that?
And if anybody wants to guess where this Who Does That comes from,
I'll give you 2 guesses. It's not Texas, but Florida.
I swear, Florida. I don't go looking for stuff, but you guys just come to me.
You guys bring it out into
like
the
I
world.
was in between 2 Who Does That's, and they were both from Florida, so it's like it's really not my fault. You guys just give us the stories, and we're just telling them.
And computer in general, it must sense when you're typing things in, because I got the funniest letter. It's like an op-ed piece about why Florida doesn't suck. That's essentially what it is. And like they're defending everything. And I'm like, no, everything you're saying is not true. They're like, it basically was saying that it's not that all these weird things happen in Florida.
Oh, that their media rules are different?
No, it's that everything that happens that's weird in Florida gets blown out of proportion. But I'm like, because the weirdest things happen in Florida.
Stuff like they have like some weird laws that are different than ours when it comes to media. It's like, no, but you also have weird things to report.
It's like the chicken and the egg. You can't sit there and say, it's just that weird things happen in Florida and it gets reported on. It's because it happens in Florida. That's what makes it weird.
When I read the title of my thing, you're going to be like, well, you really can't blame anybody but yourself.
Okay,
so here we go.
Give us some headlines.
The headline is, woman charged after throwing pork chop at boyfriend. Authorities in Brooksville, Florida have arrested a woman who reportedly attacked her boyfriend with a frozen pork chop during an argument. She didn't even cook it. The incident occurred around 9:45 p.m. on Friday. This was last Friday. So, according to the report, 48-year-old would think you know better, Jennifer Brassard was arguing with her boyfriend when suddenly she threw a frozen pork chop at his head. The frozen meat struck the man in the face, leaving a half-inch cut on one of his eyebrows. This is why I don't eat pork. Brassard allegedly took off from the scene, of course, because it's stupid.
Yeah.
But she was arrested sometime later, and she is now facing a domestic battery charge. Officials reported that other circumstances surrounding the fight are unclear. Listen, I don't know what the circumstances were, but I really don't know what would warrant throwing a fucking frozen pork chop.
I don't know. You said she is 50. If she's been dating or married to this person for 30 plus years, I can, as a married woman, I can see how throwing something frozen would be kind of beneficial for my emotional state.
I'm just kind of wondering, like, were you about to cook that pork chop? Because that's a waste of food.
I just wonder if he said something smart and she just flung it at him and that was it. You know, like, it wasn't that simple.
I can kind of identify with that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I guess as I grew up also, as like we always talk about as a Latin household, I dodged a lot of things being thrown at me. So
Latin household, they kind of just throw whatever's there. Chancla, broom hand, like it just got thrown at you.
A pan.
An iron while it was still hot.
Yeah. Yeah, once my grandmother hit me with barbed wire because she had barbed wire in her hands.
Like
that actually happened.
Like all people do. Just barbed wire all around.
Well, you know, this was in, of course, Dominican Republic, where you can get away with that kind of stuff. These days, that would never happen here. I would say barbed wire in one sentence as an 8-year-old, and I'd be taken away.
I have a younger brother, and I got a lot of toys thrown at me. Some of them really hurt. The best is when you get hit with the flying toy, and it's one of those toys that talks, so then you, like, laugh because it's talking, but you just got hit with the fucking toy. Like, those are the best.
I can honestly say I've never been hit with a pork chop. That's definitely new. That's something.
Well, I would never get hit with a pork chop because I don't eat pork, but now I'm trying to think of, like, if I hit you with a frozen chicken breast with that,
if you hit me with a pork chop, I might break out.
Right, because Kristi is this big freaking weirdo who suddenly, in her old age, is now allergic to everything. So if I hit her with the pork chop, I'd probably kill her.
And it would actually be the meat. I'm allergic to mammalian meats. That's right, you heard me. Mammalian meats means if it walks on all fours, I cannot eat it. I can only eat bird.
So you can't eat your cat now.
This is a new development. I've been eating meat my entire life. I can't eat dairy anymore. There's so many weird things happening. Like if you guys find that fountain of youth, you just take a dip in there and you just swim, baby. Because getting old is no joke. You know, it is what it is. And like I said, as I get older and more things happen to me, I could see the appeal of throwing a frozen pork chop. I'm just trying to say, I'm not trying to defend Florida. I'm just saying sometimes.
We get it.
Sometimes it happens. That's all.
Shit happens.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are super, super excited to do this every week. We hope you're super, super excited to hear from us. We are going to drop episodes religiously every Wednesday. So please check out every Wednesday.
Subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review if you really like what you hear. And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.